Hi everyone, my name's Dwayne and welcome to the channel. If this is your first time, basically what we do is we take a song by an artist or a band or whatever, and we try recreating that on the Quad Cortex. Sometimes we get close, sometimes we get close enough. It kind of just really depends on the day, I guess, and my playing style as well. But the song we're doing today is the new Ocean Grove song, So What 1999. They've also released a new album as well, and highly recommend you go check that out. Definitely one of Australia's most underrated bands. They're new metal. They've done a little bit of like alternative rock stuff as well, but I'd say new metal is kind of their sound. And this song, when you hear it, it is quintessential like 90s 90s sort of hip hop mixed with new metal riffs, and I heard it. I'm like, I've got to recreate that tone. It's a high gain tone. It's got a bit of 90s flavor to it, but also a little bit of a modern twist on there as well, I guess you could say. We're just going to dive right in and create this preset. I can tell you from listening to this song and taking down some notes that it is definitely a really high gain tone that's going to benefit from something like the EVH5153, the red one, which is probably my most used high gain amp on here. You could achieve it with like the Archetype Gojira plugin on here as well, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to stick with just the stock amps and cabinets and stuff. But before we do any of that, I'm going to put on a noise gate, and I'm going to set that to like 50% because it's going to be high gain. We want to clean up the noise because that's what noise gates do, right? They clean up the noise. I know we're going to put an overdrive in there, but we're going to leave that to last. But this is a 5150. We're going to leave it at the stock settings as well. And for the cabinet, I can't look past the 412 Zilla with the V30 speakers in there. So by itself, it's not going to sound particularly amazing, but then we're going to make it sound amazing. So also, I'm not entirely certain how to play the song properly. It's only been out for a couple of hours now, but I do know it's in drop A tuning, if that helps anyone watching, trying to learn how to play the song. And it's a pretty basic riff in there. The chorus is messing with my mind a little bit because I'm not sure of like the order of it, but I'm pretty certain I'll figure it out in here. But we've got our Zilla cabinet here, the 57 and the 160. That's a pretty, quintessential combination. These settings are going to have to be tweaked as well. But the one thing I do know is the master's going to have to come up a little bit. So we'll do that now. And before we start tweaking anything as well, we're going to put an overdrive in there. So here's where I would usually use a tube screamer, which is the green 808. And that's like the quintessential combination for this amp in here. So we're going to stick with tradition and we're going to put the tube screamer in there. We're going to set the level to 6 and we're going to put the overdrive down. But I do want to add a little bit of distortion to this sound because you can hear it's a pretty high gain. I do realize that it's double tracked and they did other stuff in the studio. I think I can hear like a synth or something under there. Something's widening the sound on there. So we're going to try and get our best to get close to it. Yeah, that's kind of cleans things up dramatically because that's what Tube Screamer does. It doesn't just serve as a boost or an overdrive. It's actually an EQ as well, which is why a lot of people, when they use it, they'll push the level all the way up as a boost, turn the overdrive down, and it's an EQ as well because it's obviously doing pre-EQ on the signal before it hits the amp. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that, but as I was saying, we definitely need to make some tweaks on here because it's a very high saturated tone. So we're going to bump the gain up to 6. I don't like to push the gain too high on the EVH5153 because otherwise it starts to get a little bit unwieldy to tame in, and I don't want to have to do more work than is necessary because these are meant to be quick, sort of little tone videos, but they're not meant to be, painful either. So I'm going to knock the bass down just a little bit because I I don't want it to be too bassy, but I also don't want to lose some of that low end as well in the tone, because as you can hear, it is very, it's very gained. So for the mid, I'm also going to push that up by 1 to 6, because you can hear it's not a modern metal tone that has the mid sucked out. It's not a Metallica tone. It's got some clarity. It's got definition. And then if you start pulling the mids out, that's when you start getting into trouble. And also, if you're going to be using this playing with a band or in a mix, you don't really want to have to pull those out unless you know what you're doing. Now, for the treble, I can hear that the song, it's got a bit of brightness to it. So once again, we're going to bump the treble up. And I'm going to do something that I would usually do for clean tones when I want them bright, is I'll push the treble up. Same thing applies for chords and stuff. So yeah, I think that's correct. Treble on the 7. Now for the resonance, we want to knock that down by just 1. We want we want a good low end response in here. We don't want to introduce too much craziness by dialing anything like that up. And it's going to sound good just with these settings the way it is. So now one thing we could do with the Tube Screamer is introduce some overdrive in there to make it a little bit grittier. So you can hear we've got nice definition in there. Nice full sounding chords, but we're still not done on this tone. We're just going to do a quick little play along to the intro just to kind of see where we're landing. So I can hear what I might have to accentuate and pull out in the EQ. I'm not going to do too crazy of an EQ because we want to go for that authentic 90s sound. We want it to be messy and grungy, and we don't want to suck the character out of it, which EQ can do. I can hear. I can hear some things that need to be fixed in the EQ, and we need to also work on trying to widen our sound, because I can hear that it hasn't got that controlled chaos feeling that the song actually has as well. So we're going to sort that out. But one thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to do some EQ here, and I'm going to put that at the end, actually. I'm going to use the plugin Graphic 9. Now, if anyone knows the answer to this question, I'd love to know. There's a Graphic 9 on the Quad Cortex. It's been there since the dawn of time. Then they added plugin compatibility, and we've got some plugin presets, and one of them is the plugin Graphic 9. Now, I know it's the Graphic 9 EQ from the plugin, but is there even a difference? Because at the end of the day, if you're just touching frequencies and stuff, shouldn't they both respond the same way? I have no idea, and I'd love to know if anyone else knows. Anyway, we're going to start pulling out and pushing up some things in the song, and then low and high pass to kind of round things out without sucking the character out. So at the 125 mark, I can hear we need to pull just a little bit out, but it definitely needs some it needs a little cut there. Yeah, that's the right thing. I think we might leave the 250 alone. but we might do a little boost in the 500 range of just one. We don't want to do too much in there. Just accentuate those mids a little bit, hey? And then on those chords, you'll really hear it. Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe at the 1K, we might want to boost that up just a little bit as well. Yeah, you can hear that's really made that 1K bump right there has really changed the game for the sound so far. Yeah, the 1K bump there has really, that has been the most dramatic, obviously, improvement to the sound so far. And then I think we probably don't want to go too much further and tweak much else, but we will bump up the 8K by 1 decibel as well. Yes, and for the high pass, we'll probably do, 80? And for the low pass, we'll do about 12,000, maybe drop that down to 10 if we want, but... No, that's it. That's the tone. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Minimal EQ adjustments, as I said. You don't want to suck the character out of this tone because it is... We just want like a nice, controlled, tight tone, but we don't want it to be strangled to death. We still want it to have breathing room and the natural dynamics and the messiness that you kind of get with this genre. We want to keep that, but we don't want to have... we don't want to let it get too unwieldy either. We do want to have a little bit of control over that. So I can also hear, listening to the song, that we want to make it a little bit more expansive and wide, but we don't want to make it as static. It sounds really static at the moment. And what I mean by that is by adding a little reverb, it just kind of widens it subtly, especially the way that we're going to do it. We're going to make really minimal reverb addition here, but it's going to make all the difference to the sound. So we're going to put that mix down to 15%. So it's barely in the mix at all. Just slight. We're going to put the decay at 20%, and let's just hear how that sounds. I also turn trails off as well. You can hear it's really minimal. It's there. I can hear it when I start playing. We want to put the pre-delay down quite low as well. You don't want that too high. And we probably want to put the high pass up a little bit. It's like 310-ish. Just see what that sounds like. I think we're there, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is the tone. That would probably have to be a new record for me. I feel like I say that all the time, but it definitely feels like we achieved this sound a lot quicker than we usually do. Okay, so now we're going to try and play the song. Keep in mind that I don't actually know how to play it. The song came out a couple of hours ago, so I'm very much learning it by ear, but I do know it is in drop A tuning. You can play it in any tuning you like. You just have to move up, no O's. But the essence is there. And at the end of the day, this is tone recreation. I'm not trying to do one-for-one guitar playthrough of the song, but I do feel like I've got the parts down pat, that it's kind of in the vicinity that you can hear the tone match. So with that in mind, let's jump in. That is such a sick song. Sick band. Like I said, check these guys out because they have nothing but bangers, these guys. And they've covered quite a few different little genres, but they kind of stay in the new metal realm. But back on track here. The tone is really basic, what we have. You can see that we didn't really do much, but one thing I did do that's unconventional for me for high gain tones is I actually added overdrive on the tube screamer. And I did that because we wanted some saturation, but I didn't want to like get the flubby saturation that's you have to really kind of start EQing and surgically fixing when you start pulling the gain up in the amp. So the settings on here are pretty basic. 4 on the overdrive, we didn't go too crazy. Left the tone on default. And the level at 6 because we're not looking to boost the amp. We just wanted to add a little push and a little coloring and, of course, use the tube screamer as an EQ in there as well. For the amp, we did some very minimal changes on here as well, actually. We put the gain up to 6, so just a little bit up over halfway at 1 o'clock there. The bass, we pulled down slightly because we didn't want too much bass in there, but we also didn't want to pull out too much of it. The mid, we pushed that up to 6 because we wanted to be a little bit more mid-focused. The treble as well, which kind of makes it a bit brighter. That's the more extreme at 7. The resonance, so we have that kind of nice low-end response. We pulled that down to 4. The master we set at 4, and then we, of course, did plate reverb. Now, in the plate reverb, just to reiterate what we did there, we did that a really minimal reverb, and you can kind of hear it when I stop. You can hear it in there. It's very subtle. It may come across differently depending on what you're listening to it on. But the reason we do that is we just want to make it a little bit more expansive. It gives it a little bit more personality, and it makes it not sound as static. If you don't need to have it, but I like to do that because it gives it a little bit more personality. And if you're trying to replicate a studio tone, especially, you don't want it to be super flat because a studio tone is, double tracked, sometimes more quad tracked. You've got bass. In this song, I can hear there's some other stuff in there. There's like maybe a synth or something under it, giving it a little bit more roundedness. And they could be using a fuzz as well or something in there. I can hear there's a bit of that kind of fuzzy grittiness in there, which we are kind of adding with the Tube Screamer, but we didn't go too crazy on it. And then lastly, we did an EQ on here, and we did some very minimal settings on here, but it may not look extreme, but this really changed the game for our tone here. I'd say the biggest improvement of the tone overall is the 1K mark. And the beautiful thing about these changes here is if you're the kind of person who's playing music with scrapes and stuff, like these EQ settings are going to really help articulate the scrapes, but not add in any excessive like fizziness or harshness into the tone. So if I just play like... It just really articulates that. And then, of course, because there's chords in there, there's like that. Makes the chords sound a little bit more forward, but then also there's little death metal deathcore that it also helps with those single notes as well. And that's the tone. As you can see, we didn't really go too extreme. But what we will do is we will save this now. And I am going to upload this to the cloud as well. So it'll be linked in the description. But I would love to know your thoughts on how close you got with the tone match, because my ears are only one set of ears and opinions, but I feel like we got pretty close to the tone. I'm really happy at that. We've got a really well-rounded metal tone that you could just use for anything high gain, really, especially modern stuff. But you can hear it's got that little slight added grit in there to kind of make it a little bit dirtier. It's not like a gent tone, but you could still gent with it if you wanted to. Yeah, it's just a nice all-around heavy tone with just a few little improvements. And as you can see, the Quad Cortex, when it comes to higher gain tones, like it is the master at letting you dial in monster tones that sound absolutely huge, and you don't really have to work that hard to get them like you would with other modelers. Not to throw shade there at any other modelers, but you can just see it just makes it so easy. And maybe that's just because I just do a lot of high gain stuff, but... So yeah, that's the tone. That's kind of where we got to on that. I'd love to know your thoughts on the tone that we've achieved here, if it sounds close to you, because I've just got one set of ears and, an opinion, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm the one making the tone, but I think it sounds pretty great to me. And you could use it for pretty much anything else, like I said. If you have any requests for songs that you'd like to see me tackle next as well, let me know in the comments. I take requests, any song, any genre, I'll give it a tackle as long as it's a guitar tone at the end of the day. Not going to be picky about it, but yeah, feel free to request stuff in the comments and subscribe if you haven't already, because I do these videos quite often, and I try and educate people on how to use the Quad Cortex, but also how to do things like EQ and stuff like that as well, because I think they're things that people are intimidated by, but once you realize when you start doing it that it's not as scary as it seems, especially on the Quad Cortex, I think it's an amazing skill to learn how to dial in a tone. So, made it to the end of this video. I very much appreciate you watching, and hopefully I'll see you around in another video. Thank you.